It is important that you read along with the printed pages as you listen to the reading of the third excerpt of Always Running. As you listen, please pay attention as questions will appear on the screen. When they appear on the screen, please pause the video and answer the questions in the class notes section of your notebook. Look to the page where it says Start. You can't be in a fire and not get burned. This was my father's response when he heard of the trouble I was getting into at school. He was a philosopher. He didn't get angry or hit me. That he left to my mother. He had these lines, these cuts of wisdom, phrases and syllables, which swept through me, sometimes even making sense. I had to deal with him at that level, with my brains. I had to justify in words with ideas all my actions, no matter how insane. Most of the time I couldn't. Mama was heat. Mama was turned around leather belts and wailing choruses of Mother Mary of Jesus. She was the penetrating emotion that came at you through her eyes, the mother guilt, the one who birthed me, who suffered through the contractions and diaper changes and all my small hurts and fears. For her, dealing with school trouble or risking my life was nothing for discourse, nothing to debate. She went through all this hell and more to have me. I'd better do what she said. Mama hated the cholos. They reminded her of the rowdies on the border who fought all the time, who talked that callow slang, drank mezcal, smoked marijuana, and left scores of women with babies bursting out of their bodies. To see me become like them made her sick, made her cringe and cry and curse. Mama reminded us how she'd seen so much alcoholism, so much weed madness, and she prohibited anything with alcohol in the house, even beer. I later learned this rage came from how Mama's father treated her siblings and her mother, how in drunken rages he'd hit her mom and drag her through the house by the hair. The school informed my parents I had been wreaking havoc with a number of other young boys. I was to be a part of a special class of troublemakers. We would be isolated from the rest of the school population and forced to pick up trash and clean graffiti during the rest of the school year. Mrs. Rodriguez, your son is too smart for this, the vice principal told Mama. We think he's got a lot of potential, but his behavior is atrocious. There's no excuse. We're sad to inform you of our decision. They also told her the next time I cut class or even made a feint toward trouble, I'd be expelled. After the phone call, my mom lay on her bed, shaking her head while sobbing in between bursts of how God had cursed her for some sin, how I was the devil incarnate, a plague, testing her in this brief tenure on earth. My dad's solution was to keep me home after school, grounded. Yeah, sure, I was 13 years old already tattooed, already sexually involved, already into drugs. In the middle of the night, I snuck out through the window and worked on my way to the hills. At 16 years old, Reno turned out much better than me, much better than anyone could have envisioned during the time he was a foul-faced boy in Watts. When we moved to South San Gabriel, a Mrs. Snelling took a liking to Reno. The teacher helped him skip grades to make up for the times he was pushed back in those classes with the retarded children. Mrs. Snelling saw talent in Reno, a spark of actor during the school's thespian activities. She even had him play the lead in a class play. He showed some facility with music. He was good in sports. He picked up the bass guitar and played for a number of garage bands. He was getting trophies in track and field events, in gymnastic meets, and later in karate tournaments. So when I was at Garvey, he was in high school being the good kid, the Mexican exception, the barrio success story, my supposed model. Soon he stopped being Reno, or even Jose. One day, he became Joe. My brother and I were moving away from each other. Our tastes, our friends, our interests were miles apart. Yet there were a few outstanding incidents I fondly remember in relationship to my brother. Incidents which, despite their displays of closeness, failed to breach the distance which would later lie between us. When I was 9, for example, my brother was my protector. He took on all the big dudes, the bullies on corners, the ones who believed themselves better than us. Being a good fighter transformed him overnight. He was somebody who some feared, some looked up to. Then he developed skills for racing and high jumping. This led to running track, and he did well, dusting all the competition. I didn't own any talents. I was lousy in sports. I couldn't catch baseballs or footballs. And I constantly tripped when I ran or jumped. When kids pick players for basketball games, I was the last one they choose. The one time I had inadvertently hit a home run during a game at school. I didn't mean to do it. I ended up crying while running around the bases because I didn't know how else to react to the cheers, the excitement, directed at something I did. It just couldn't be me. But Reno had enemies too. There were 2 Mexican kids who were jealous of him. They were his age, 3 years older than me. One was named Eddie Gomez and the other Ricky Corral. One time they cornered me outside of the school. "You Jose's brother," Eddie said. I didn't say anything. "What's the matter? Can't talk?" "Oh, he can talk all right," Ricky chimed in. "He acting the pendejo because his brother thinks he's so bad. Well, he ain't shit. He can't even run." "Yeah, Jose just a lambiche, a kiss ass," Eddie responded. "They give him those ribbons and stuff because he cheats." "That's not true," I finally answered. "My brother can beat anybody." "Oh, you're saying he can beat me?" Eddie countered. "Sure sounds like he said that," Ricky added. "I'm only saying that when he wins those ribbons, está derecho," I said. "It sounds to me like you're saying he better than me," Eddie said. "Is that what you're saying, man?" Ricky demanded. "Come on, is that what you're saying?" I turned around and beneath my breath mumbled something about how I didn't have time to argue with them. I shouldn't have done that. "What'd you say?" Eddie said. "I think he called you a punk," Ricky agitated. "You call me a punk, man?" Eddie turned around. I denied it. "I heard him, dude. He's saying you're a punk-ass puto." Ricky continued to exhort. The fist came at me so fast, I don't even recall how Eddie looked when he threw it. I found myself on the ground. Others in the school had gathered around by then. When a few saw it was me, they knew it was going to be a slaughter. I rose to my feet. My cheek had turned swollen and blue. I tried to hit Eddie, but he backed up real smooth and hit me again. Ricky egged him on. I could hear the excitement in his voice. I lay on the ground, defeated. Teachers came and chased the boys out, but before Eddie and Ricky left, they yelled back, "Jose ain't nothing, man. You ain't nothing." Anger flowed through me, but also humiliation. It hurt so deep I didn't even feel the fracture in my jaw, the displacement which would later give me a disjointed, lopsided, protruding chin. It became my mark. Later, when I told Reno what happened, he looked at me and shook his head. "You didn't have to defend me to those dudes," he said. "They're assholes. They ain't worth it." I looked at him and told him something I never, ever told him again. "I did it because I love you."